Good evening. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Sanhedrin Daf Zayin and a good part of Kuf Ches and Aleph. These Gemaras are not difficult. I'm going to move pretty quickly. Feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. Top line of Kuf Zayin and Aleph. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav. L'olam al yavi adam asmo lidei nisayon. You should not bring temptation upon yourself. Shari David Melech Yisrael hevi atzmo lidei nisayon v'nichshal. David Melech tried this and it didn't work out well. If David isn't going to succeed, we are not going to succeed. Don't look for challenges, and don't worry, challenge will find you. It always does. Amar lefanav Ribbon Shalom. Mipnei ma omrim Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Ve'ein omrim Elokei David. What's the question? What's David talking about, right? Okay, fine. That's not for now. Amar shoot high. So Hashem says back to David, Amar inhu minsuli. They were tested by me. Ve'ad lo minsisli. But you were not tested by me. Amar the fun of the dangerous words. Ribbon Shalom bechoneni v'naseni. So go ahead, test me. Abechina, give me any sign, I'm okay. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, and this is a pasuk in Tehillim, bechoneni Hashem v'naseni. B'gomer. Amar, Hashem says, fine. Min sebalach, I'm going to test you. Ve'avidna milsa bahadach delididu lohodatin. I'm going to do something that's unique by you, that by them, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, I didn't tell them what their challenges were, and they succeeded. Bilu ana, but I, for you, kamodan alach, I'm going to tell you what it's going to be. The sugya is going to be I'm going to be testing you in regards to the world of Erva. This Gemara is a relatively well-known Gemara, many pieces of it at least. Miyad, he went home and he knew it was going to be about Erva. He prepared. Says the Gemara, it was nighttime and David got out of bed. Why was David getting out of bed at night? He knew it was going to be about Arayos. So what he wanted to do was make sure that he had no temptations. So he was together with his spouse, with one of his wives during the day. That's what it means. He got out of bed at night because he knew HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to test him with Erva. So he made sure that his feelings were all in check. He had no problem. He was good to go. The problem is that David made an error. This is such an important Gemara psychologically about the healthy way for men to approach Shmiras Habris and Shmiras Einayim, such an important Gemara. The Gemara says, this is also quoted in Maseches Sukkah, we saw it many years ago. Ever katan yesh ba'adam, there is one limb of a person. Masbio ra'ev, when you starve it, when you are masbio, when you satiate it, it will starve. And mar'ivo savea, and if you starve it, it will be satiated. This is the balancing act of trying to balance one's desires in the world of Aras. And the mistake was, the Rishonim point out, that he didn't just change the time at which he had Tashmish Amita, he had more Tashmish Amita, which means that now the Yetzer Hara is triggered even more. And then what happened? Vayisalech al gag beis hamelech. David was on the roof. Vayar isha rochetzes me'al hagag, and across the way, on the top of another building, he saw a woman bathing on the roof. Vayisha tovas mara me'od, and she was beautiful. Bathsheba hava kachaifa reishe tu sechalsa. Bathsheba was cleaning her hair, shampooing her hair underneath a canopy of some kind. And then Asa Satan, the Satan shows up, Idmile Kitsiparta. And the Satan showed to be like a bird, maybe a bird that David wanted to hunt. So Pasak Begira, he pulls the bow and fires an arrow at this bird, and Paska Lachalsa, and the arrow removes the canopy, and Igle Vechazye, and reveals Bathsheba, who is bathing. Miyad, the Gemara then says, Vayishlach David vayidrosh leisha. David sent messengers to figure out who she was. Vayamru halo zos Bathsheba bas Elam eshes Uriah Chiti. She's the daughter of Elam, and she's the wife of Uriah Chiti. Vayishlach David malachim vayikacheha. David sent messengers and took her. Vatavo elav, she joined him. Vayishkav ima, and they cohabited together. Vimis kadeshes mitumasa, and she was sanctified from her tuma. The Rashi over here at the top of the page, 5 lines, 6 lines, 7 lines from the top of the page. Miskadeshes mitumasa, osasha pasak tumasa v'lo ba'alak shehinida. She had first had to get, that's why she was on the roof. She was doing chafifa. She was preparing for the mikvah, and then she went to the mikvah, and then they were together. The flow of the pasuk does seem a little bit difficult in regards to the timing of things, but of course, he did not sleep with a woman who's a nida. Miskadeshes mitumasa ba'teshev el beisa, and then she went back home. Anu dechsiv, now that David realized that he failed, he said, and this is a pasuk in Tehillim as well, the pasuk says, Bachanta Libi, you tested my heart. Pakadata Laila, you counted the nights. Tzaraftani, I was put through the crucible. Bal Timsa, and I could not be found. And what does the rest of the pasuk mean? Zamosi Bal Yavor. That rest of the pasuk means Zamosi Bal Yavor means Amar, I'ika Zemama, had there been a muzzle, Nafal bepume, that would have fallen on my mouth, that would have been better. Demand Desanili, the one who hates me, David speaking about himself, below Amar Ki Haimilsa. I wish there was a muzzle that stopped me from ever saying that. I should never have said to you, why am I not added in the Shemona Esrei bracha? I never should have said anything to you because you don't bring nisyonos upon yourself. And that's the big musar for the first part of our Gemara. We don't need to ask for nisyonos. We'll have plenty without anyone offering them to us. Like I've heard these people say, no, I should have my phone because it's worldly and I'm strong enough. Okay, my Rebbe used to hold that you should hold an Isser of Yichud with a device that has internet. He said Isser Yichud. So if he ever had to check his mail and I watched this be'inem, he'd say to his daughter, sweetheart, can you just stand in the room while I check my email? He mamish treated it like Hilchos Yichud. That's how he treated the internet. Anyways, the Gemara says halfway down 2 lines into the wide lines, what does the pasuk mean? I trusted in you, Hashem. How can you say that the mountain was moved by a bird? What is this talking about? Remember what happened? The bird that was there, and he shot an arrow, and he was tempted by that bird to shoot the arrow, and then that arrow happened to pull down the canopy. I don't want anyone to see that Har Shebachem, the reference to David, he was the great one, he was the Har, that he was moved by a bird. You're a chashav yid. Why would you want that said about you? Next, what does the pasuk mean? I sinned towards you. I did something bad, and look at this. Why did I do something bad? So that you could look righteous. David said, I did my avera for you. It's mamish and avera lishma. How does David explain this? It's revealed and known to you, kamach, before you. The ibaya lemichve leads, right? If I wanted to be in control of my Yitzhahara, hava kaifina, I would have done so. But I let myself fail for you, Hashem. Ella, Amina, I argued the lo lemru avda zachi lemari. I don't want it to appear that I'm more pure than my master. A very, very difficult svara from a chashav yid. Again, like that. If my child said that, no, Abba, I wanted to crash your car because then they'll know it was me and it wasn't you. Like I could expect a 16-year-old to say that. But David HaMelech, it's a very difficult Gemara. Next, 5 lines into the wide lines, Dorash Rava, another drasha. That I and the rib, that pain is always with me. The David, she really was fitting for David, from the beginning of creation. Ella sheba Allah, it should be Allah with an ayin. Ella sheba Allah b'macho, but the way that things happened was painful. It wasn't the way they met in the wrong way. They were destined to marry, but they met in the wrong way. But literally, it means he consumed it raw. He consumed it unripe, which means that they met too early. They should not have been together when they were. Those who are limping are happy and gathered in. Those who are gathered are nechim. Those are disabled. And I didn't know. Karu v'lo damu, have torn open and I did not bleed. What does this mean? Amar David lifnei Kodesh Baruch Hu. What does this pasuk mean? Ribono shel olam. David says, that if anybody teared my flesh, lo haya d'mei shoses, my blood would not even drip. In other words, I've been embarrassed by my own avera. People know what I did, and because people know what I did, I'm embarrassed. And what happens when you're embarrassed? All the blood leaves your face. So I'm embarrassed. That's what it means. If my flesh were torn open, I wouldn't even bleed. Below, not only that, when I was in the base medrash and everyone was learning, David HaMelech, of course, would hit up a good 9 seder, and in the middle, the Chevra would make fun of him. Poskim mishnas, and they'd stop learning. And here's what everyone would say to me. Said David, "Oh, David, David, tzaddik, what you did with Bathsheba, what's the punishment?" So David had a little integrity and a little bit of a jab. Amarti lahem, David says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what did I say back to the critics in the base medrash? That you're right, absolutely, it's true that there's a misas chenek for what happened. But even with that, I'll still have olam haba. However, but embarrassing someone in public, there we say ein lo chelek olam haba. Sharp, right? Make fun of me all you want. I'll be in olam haba, and you won't. Amar Yehuda Marabba, afilu b'shas cholio shel David, that even at a time when David was sick, we'll soon see that he had tsaras for 6 months as a result of what happened with Bathsheba. He accepted it upon himself. Even when he was sick, Kaim Shmona Esrei Onos. He kept all 18 Onos. What is this referring to? This is referring to the mitzvah of Ona. Take a look at a very important Rashi. Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom. Yudches Onos, Yudches Nashav, to his 18 wives, Shelo le'agnan, to not torture them. Aguna. What does that mean? That there's a mitzvah saseh shel Torah for a husband to be available for his wife for intimacy. That's the mitzvah of Ona. And to be unavailable for that it gets the language of aguna. You're leaving your wife without what is her right, without what she needs. So even when David was not well, he still made sure to fulfill the mitzvah of Ona. Where are we? Here we are. Oh my gosh, these Gemaras are so long. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says, that it Kaim Shmona Esrei Ono Shenamar Yagati Ban Chasi Asche B'Cholai Limitasi B'Dimasi Arsiam. So now obviously this pasuk is from Tehillim, and we say it in Tachanun Yagati Ban Chasi. I'm tired from all of my sighing. Asche B'Cholai Limitasi. I'm going to speak on my bed at night. B'Dimasi Arsiam. I'm going to saturate my bed with tears. Now, here, there's a little bit of a mashal that is not saturating with tears, but with tashma shamita. Anyways, the pasuk is being used in a homiletical way. In order, David, when it came to Absalom trying to kill David, David said, "Better I should do avodah zarah than let my son kill me." Shinamar, the pasuk says, "David ba'ad harosh asher yishtachav sham lelokim vein rosh el avodah zarah." It seems that pasuk is talking about rosh is avodah zarah. Shinamar v'utzalma reishe di dehav tav, that the head of the idol was made out of good gold. Hinei likraso. And then he was greeted. David was greeted by Chushai Ha'arki, Karua Kosnaso. He had his clothes torn. V'adama al Roshon. He had dirt on his head. Amar lo David, what are you doing? Yomru Melech She'kamoscha Yavod Avodah Zarah. What are you doing? Why would you ever do Avodah Zarah? You're from a Yid. So it says the Gemara, Amar lo Melech She'kamosi Yahargenu B'no. My son Avshalom is out to kill me. You think that's normal? And he said, Mutav Yavod Avodah Zarah. I'd rather do avodah zarah and have my son kill me deservedly, than to have him kill me for a reason that makes no sense. Obviously, this is not what we should do. Right? We should probably rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu in those cases, because you're not causing a chilul Hashem by not doing avodah zarah and having someone kill you for the wrong reasons. That's not how it works. And besides, this Gemara is very shver because it's Yeharig Val Yavor. The only thing that makes sense is you have a chilul Hashem against Yehareg Val Yavor. Again, maybe that's a little bit of a conversation, but that's really what's the undercurrent here. Says the Gemara, Amar, he takes another approach. This is Chushai Ha'arki talking to David. My time Konasivas Yifas Torah. David had married a Yifas Torah. In fact, Avshalom was the birth. He was the son of that union of David HaMelech with an Eshes Yifas Torah. Says the Gemara, David responded, what do you mean? It's Psukim and Chumash. I'm allowed to marry an Eshes Yifas Torah. You have to and whatever the halachos are, you're allowed. So says the Gemara, Lo darashta smuchin. You don't learn smuchin? After all, the Samechle, what is close to the sugi of Eshes Yifas Torah? Ki yihi al ish ben sorah remora. And look at this. Kol anose Yifas Torah, yesh lo ben sorah remora. If you go through with it, yeah, it's mutter. If you go through with it and you marry an Eshes Yifas Torah, best of luck to you. That child is going to be a Ben Sorah Remora. Maybe this is a raya that Ben Sorah Remora is real, because we saw earlier that perhaps Ben Sorah Remora was just Lahagdil Torah Lahadira, that Lo Hayav Lo Yeh. Over here, it seems to be real, because David actually got married. David actually had a relationship with an Eshes Yifas Torah, and Avshalom was the product. And look at Avshalom trying to kill his own father. Now, he wasn't the Ben Sorah more in a classical way. Maybe that's what the Gemara means, but it does seem that the Ben Sorah more is pretty real. It wasn't just there Lahagdil Torah Lahadira, it was being used halachically. Next, we're about 12 lines or so from the bottom of Kuv Zayin and Aleph. Ooh, we're making terrible time. Okay, says the Gemara, Darshav Dustai, Demin Biri, Lama David Dome. What is David similar to? David wanted to get tshuva. What is he similar to in his process of getting tshuva? L'socher kusi. A socher kusi always will sell small items instead of big items. Amar David lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ribono Shel Olam shigios mi'avin. The shigios, the accidents that I made, I don't even know I made them. I'm no one's perfect. Amar Lei HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to David, shviki lach. Don't worry, I'll clean your plate. You have nothing to worry about those averos. Okay. What about the hidden averos that I know about that nobody else knows about? Hashem says, I'll leave those alone as well. You don't have to worry. Are you going to also forgive me for the sins that I did? There's your Gemaras are going to not have this exact girsa, but what I'm about to read seems to be the correct girsa. Alim shuluvi azesam. That they should not rule over me. The rabbis shouldn't really be talking about me. Do you mind? I'll make sure the rabbis don't talk about you. And can you clean me of all of my sins? I'd like you to not write it down in the Navi. I don't want it to be in the canon. Take it out of the Navi. I don't want people to know what I did with Bathsheba. Says the Gemara, Kodesh Baruch Hu says I'm not allowed to do that. Once in the canon, it stays in the canon. Why? The yud that I took from Sarai when I changed her name, made her Sarah. The yud floated in the ether until it landed. Yoshua. If that letter is going to scream for all that time, I can't. I can't. Hashem says I can't. I can't go that far for you. I'm happy to forgive you. I'm going to give you most of the tshuva, but this cannot be removed from Tanakh. People need to know what happened. What about this line? This is, according to some, this line shouldn't have been there before, but it's here now. So there's a lot of girsa challenges here. It says the Gemara, Amar Lafana Ribon Shalom Macholi al Oso Avon Kulo. I want full forgiveness. You've given me most, I want full. Amar Kvar Asid Shlomo Bincha Lomar B'chochmaso, that Shlomo is going to say something very wise down the road. And this is a pasuk from Mishlei. The pasuk says, Hayachate ish eish b'cheiko. If a man shovels fire into his chest, you think his clothes aren't going to burn? You think someone's going to walk on coals and his feet aren't going to be burned? Same is true with you. You're not totally pater from what you did. There's a mitzvah, something happened there. David says to Hashem, I'm going to be kicked out of full tshuva for the rest of my life. This is going to be the shackles of my future that I did this one Aveira. I'm not saying it's a small Aveira, but my gosh, like there's got to be a process. Says the Gemara, the only way to be menaka the neshama in cases like this, Nebuch, is to go through Yisurim. So what does David say? David says, I accept the Yisurim. So the Gemara says 4 lines from the bottom. He had tzaras for 6 months, and during that time, there was no Shechina access to him. Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin separated from him as well. How do we know? Ezov was used in the Tahara process. That's the reference over here. Plus it continues to Chabseni Misheleg Albin. And what will it clean me from? From Sheleg. What's the Sheleg a reference to? Tzaras. Perfect. So we understand he had Tzaras. How do we know that the Shechina left him? Sason. The Sason in this case is Shechina. Sason Yishecha B'ruach Nedivatis Mecheni. And how do we know Parshim Yimenu Sanhedrin? Last line. Those who fear you. That's a reference to the Sanhedrin. Shisha Chodashim Minalan. How do we know that David had Saras for 6 months? Bottom line, Kuv Zayin Amad Aleph says the Gemara, Dechsiv Hayamim Asher Malach David Al Yisrael Arba'im Shana Bechevron. Arba'im Shana Bechevron Malach Sheva Shana B'Yerushalayim Malach Shloshem V'Shalosh Shana. Uchsiv, and later it says Bechevron Malach Al Yehuda Sheva Shana V'Shisha Chodashim. V'ani Shisha Chodashim Lo Kachashim. Why the distinction? You have two psukim that say a different. No, says Gemara Shema Minan. It's Tariyah. That was the difference in time, the 6 months, which means he wasn't really the melech during that time. They had a backup. They had the designee, whoever it was. 4 lines down, Kuv Zayin Amid Beis. Says the Gemara, Amar Lefanav Ron Shalom Mecholei Al Oso Avon. Please, I'm begging you, give me forgiveness. Machulach. After the Yisurim, then he got full tshuva. I'd like it to be that those who are my enemies will be embarrassed because you have helped me and you've comforted me. Namely, I want you to let them know that you've given me forgiveness so that they stop being my enemies. Not during your life. But I will during your son's life. And listen to this story where we see that David got exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised. It was posthumous, but he still got what he wanted. When Shlomo built the Beis HaMikdash, he wanted to bring in the Aron to the Kodesh HaKodashim. The problem is it didn't fit. The doors wouldn't open. The doors were stuck. As the Gemara Amar, he said, Shlomo said, Esher v'arba renanos v'lo. He said 24 renanos, 24 praises, nothing happened. Amar, he said, Sushar Moshecha v'nasu pischayami o melcha kavod miz melcha kavod Hashem b'tzuzgi v'givar Hashem v'givar melchama. Open it for the sake of you, Hashem. V'namar Sushar Moshecha v'nasu pischayami o melcha kavod v'chule v'lo ne'ena. Still, nothing. Says the Gemara, don't turn your face away from your anointed one. Oh, that's what worked. That's how we got to Aaron into the Kodesh HaKodashim in the times of Shlomo with this tefillah. First long line, the faces of the enemies of David were they turned the color of the bottom of the pot. Obviously, a turn phrase showing that they now knew. End of story of David. Here's the short version of the story. Don't ask for Yetzer Hara. It causes a lot of problems. We have a big enough Yetzer Hara on our own. We don't need help. The challenges will be there, and we should fight through them as best we can. Let's talk about Gehazi. Gehazi was actually the attendant of Elisha, and he had a little bit of a temptation, and he ended up stealing something, which we're going to see soon. Let's get into the story. Gehazi, we're a third of the way down, 2 lines into the wide lines. Where did he go? The reason why Elisha went to Damascus was to try and get Gehazi to do tshuva, but he wouldn't listen. Amar lo, he said to Gehazi, Chazor b'cha, do tshuva. Amar lo, Gehazi says to Elisha, Kach mekublani mimcha, I learned Torah from you. What did you teach me? I'm a bad person. I was machdes harabim. And we're going to see soon what that was. But if a person is chotei umachdes harabim, then ein maspikim biyado la'asos tshuva. So Gehazi is like, what? For what? What am I going to do tshuva for? So that it doesn't work? It doesn't work. Says the Gemara, my avad, what avera did he do? Says the Gemara, even sho'eves tala lachatas yiravim v'hamida ben shamayim la'aretz. Brilliant. He took magnets and it held up. Remember, we learned about this, that Yeravam had put up these 2 extra golden calves, one in Dan and one in, what was the other place? I can't remember. He put it up in 2 places. And he used some magnets to make it float. Really pretty ahead of his time from a scientific perspective, but I guess they must have had magnets. So the Gemara says he did. And by the way, it was gold. Gold doesn't magnetize, right? There must have been something else going on here. It must have been kind of above our pay grade, because is what the Gemara says. It's Evan Shoeves Tala Lachatas Yiravam. That's what it says. But gold doesn't magnetize. Okay, so that was one possible thing that he did, because he was machdias. Remember that you only just don't get tshuva if you're machdias harabim. If you do an avera on your own, you're good. Well, I'm saying you're bad, but you can get tshuva. But here, that was bad. What's the other possibility of what Gehazi did? Vika da'amre shem chakak b'fiyah. He actually etched Hashem's name into the mouth of the egel hazahav v'ha'isa machrezes v'omer sanochi v'lo yihi. And then somehow, some way, this thing ended up actually saying Anocha v'lo yeh, the first 2 of the Aser Sadibros, which is pretty bad. You don't want to give over that optic. That really what was going on is that Gehazi kicked people out of the Beis Medrash. He pushed rabbis away from Talmud Torah. How do we know this? Shneimar, that after Gehazi left, there's no room in the Beis Medrash. Everything is jammed. Go in the Beis Medrash tonight, the main Beis Medrash, it's Pesach Zman. There's an extra, just triple the number of people. It's Givaldik. It's a Kol Torah. It's amazing. It's going to be more, Mir Hashem. Mechlal, what does this imply about this pasuk? The Ad Hashta, when Gehazi was still there up until this time, Lo Havutzar. It wasn't so stretched. And now that he left, everybody came back to the Beis Medrash. What must have been happening? He must have been kicking people out. He was Machdes Harabim. Don't go learn. Don't go learn. Don't go learn. What do we hear from our Rabbanim? Go learn. Go chop another Seder. Halfway down, small docha. Very important yesod, very hard to execute. We should always have the left pushing away and the right bringing close. Lo ke'alisha, shadachvu legechazi b'shtei yadayim. A musar. Elisha pushed away Gehazi with 2 hands. He said, goodbye, you're done. He didn't have the yamin mekarebes. He had 2 hands that were docha. He'll get punished for that, as we will soon see. Gehazi, dechsi vayomer Naaman hol v'kach v'karim v'yiparetz bo v'yitzar kikarim kasev v'chulei vayomer Elisha elav Elisha said Gehazi me'ayin Gehazi, where are you going? Vayomer lo halach avdecha ana v'ana. I'm not really going anywhere. Vayomer elav lo libi halach kasher hafach ish me'al merkavto likrasecha. He says, my heart. Lo libi halach, did my heart not go after kasher hafach ishmael merkavta likrasech? I went after you to try and change you. You stole money, but you stole all of these things, clothes and olives and vineyards and animals and maidservants. Did he really do that? That's not true. Kasef begadim hu deshakal. He only took clothing and money. He didn't take all those other things. Says the Gemara, that's not true. At that time, Elisha was in the base medrash learning the sigis of Shmona Shratzim. Naaman Sartzav Amalach Aram. When it comes to Naaman, Haya Mitzora. At that time, he was a Mitzora. And when Naaman was a Mitzora, Amr Leha Hi Revisa the Ishtavoy Me'aradis Me'ar Yisrael. There was a young girl who was a captive, who was an Israeli girl, and she says to Naaman Sartzava, Iaz Lasagabe Elisha Masilach. I know you have Tzoras. Go to Elisha; he can save you. So Kiyasa. He did. Amar Lei says to Elisha, Elisha says to Naaman, Zilt will be Arden. I know you have Taras. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about. I'm Elisha. Go jump in the Jordan River. You'll be fine. Amar Lei, you're making fun of me? He says, I have all of the nicest rivers in the world. What do you, I'm a rich guy. I'm the Saratsava. I'm the general in the army. Why do you tell me to jump in the Jordan? I could do that without you. So Amar Lei, the people around him said, Hanu Dahabu Bahadeh, the people who were with Elisha, they said, jump in the water. My nafkalach mina, just get in the water. What are you complaining about? Cares, just go. Zil, Nasi, and he went and he got healed. Azal, Zil, Nasi, go try. So Azal, v'tavel b'yarden of Itzi, jumped in and he was fine. Then, this is where Gehazi starts to get involved. Asa, Aisi, Le, Kol Hani, Dinakid. And then, Naaman, who was a Sartzava, brought all of these gifts because he got healed from the Tzaras by jumping in the water that the maiden, that the Jewish girl suggested. So things were going great, and he wanted to offer Elisha all these gifts. But Elisha was a Yasher person; he didn't want to take any gifts. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide. I don't need that from him. Gehazi iftar mikamed Elisha. Gehazi is like, well, if he doesn't want it, I'll take it. That's what Gehazi was like, kind of, He's kind of getting a little sneaky. He's like, if Elisha doesn't want the gifts from Naaman, I'll take it. Azal shakal ma'ida shakal. He took whatever he wanted to be, and then he was all good. He was a happy camper. He also, when he got back to where Elisha was, he saw that Gehazi had tzaras on the hair. Amarle, Rasha. This was just a tongue-in-cheek phrase. You're coming to take your schar for Shmona Shratzim. You should be sitting in the base medrash. What are you doing taking stuff that I didn't take? You shouldn't be taking that. The pasuk says, then Elisha gives a curse to Gehazi and says, the taras of Naaman should be stuck to you and your children, Gehazi, forever. And by the time that he finished talking, he was covered in white, in leprosy. And we're dealing with people who, again, like it's just explicit miracles. Like it's like the stories of Moshe and Miriam. He puts his hand inside and it comes out. It has saras. Puts it back inside. These are people who are way. Again, we have nothing to compare it to. There are 4 people who were Mitzrayim at the opening of the gate, and who were they? Amar Yochanan, Gehazi v'shlosh banav, because Elisha's curse was for Gehazi and his children. So we see that it actually applied. Tanya, the Brisa says, Amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Yetzer Tinok v'isha, when it comes to the Yetzer Hara by Arayos, when it comes to Tinok, to a child, v'isha, Tei small docha v'min nekareves. It has to be a balancing act. This is, in regards to the Yetzer Hara for Arayos, that's for sure true, we know, right? We might have to make sure that that was what the Gemara said earlier, that maspio ra'ev, if you satiate the desire, if you're too involved in intimacy, then the Yetzer Hara goes crazy. If you're involved super little, at the minimum, then you're doing great. And the Gemara has a similar line here. And with the Tinok and with an Isha, you also have to have that balance of small docha and yamin mekareves. Tana Rabban and Gimel Chalayim Chala Elisha. Elisha had 3 illnesses. Echad Shagira Dubim Vitinokos. There was something that happened, and there were some bears that ended up killing children. Another thing that made him sick was that he pushed away Gehazi the wrong way. It should always be, one is, what is it? Small, what was the phrase? Yeah, small docha v'min nekareves, and he did it wrong. He pushed him away with 2 hands. And echad shemesbo, the third one, he died. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, and this one we have to see inside because part of the pasuk, the ikr part of the pasuk is actually missing. The pasuk says, "Ve'Elisha chala es cholyo asher yamusbo." So look at this: chala, cholyo, and yamusbo. Those were the 3 things. Those are the 3 things that he did wrong. Next, 8 lines from the bottom. Ad Avram lo haya zikna. Up until Avram, nobody aged. Called the Chazil Avram Amar, Hi Yitzchak. Oh, yeah, hello, Rabbi Yitzchak, how are you? It wasn't Yitzchak, it was Avram, but they couldn't tell the difference. Called the Chazil Yitzchak Amar, Hi Avram, and then they would just keep mixing them up. Ba Avram Rachamei de lehavale zikna. So Avram said, I want to age. Why? Why did he care that he was being called Yitzchak? Who cares if you age or don't age? I get mixed up for my brother all the time. Happens all the time. I've been called Avi. I've been called Howard. Howard's been called me. Someone thanked Howard for the bris they did for their grandson. He's like, I think you got the wrong Karesh. We get mixed up. Who cares? Why does Zikna have to come for that? So that requires Rishonim. I don't know the answer to that question. Shenemar Avram Zaken Baba Yamin. He was an old man. He had come along and had said, Ad Yaakov Lahav Chulsha. There were no warnings before death. No one got sick and then died. They just hit the floor, and that was their time. So that I understand. You want a chesed. You want it to be that there's time to process a person's severe illness before they pass. So he davened, and that's why there is disease before death. Until Elisha's time, there was never a case where a person got sick and then healed. Up until that time, if someone were to have gotten sick, they would have died. And he davened and he said, "Let me heal," and it worked out. Because he had the chala and the cholya, like he survived the first two illnesses. Let's plow through. We're going to learn till about halfway down on Kuf Ches Amud Aleph. Dor Mabul ein lam chelek l'olam haba vein omdin b'din. They have no chelek in olam haba, and there really is an extra din that takes place before olam haba. Again, don't know what I'm talking about, but that's what is going on here. Shnemar lo yadun ruchi ba'adam le'olam lo din v'lo ruach. They're not going to be. They have no chelek in olam haba, and they're not going to have that din in Bezdin. Dor Aflaga. Ein lam chelek l'olam haba. Shnemar vayafetz Hashem osam misham al pnei kol haaretz. Vayafetz Hashem osam b'olam hazeh misham hafitzam Hashem l'olam haba. Anshe Sodom ein lam chelek l'olam haba. The people of Sodom, they have no next world either. Shnemar Anshe Sodom roem v'chatoim. By the way, I feel so good about myself as a Jew after reading these Mishnayos. Like these are the ones that don't have a chelek. We're doing good. I'm not saying we're tzaddikim. I'm just saying we're not as bad as these people are. Yeah. It's just good to know that like the Mishnah is calling out like the Dora Mabul, the Dora Flaga, and the Anshe Stom. Although every once in a while I see a Midas Stom, like if I can't have it, you can't have it. But that exists in our culture. But that's still not what the Gemara means here. The Mishnah here is talking about the Anshe Stom. Unlike the previous case of Dora Mabul, here they are Omid B'din. They will have this extra din Torah again. Before Olam Haba, it's hard to describe the timing of this. Not true. Even Anshe Stom don't have this. What does this pasuk mean? Top of Kuf Ches Amud Aleph. So that pasuk says that they will have mishpat. They will get judged. So that's what they won't have mishpat. That's what this pasuk says. They won't get judged at all. Amrulo, einam omden ba'adas tzadikim alval omden ba'adas rishayim. You don't get to stand in the place of the righteous, but you do get to stand in the place of the rishayim. Let's learn the parentheses. Meraglen, the spies, einam chelek l'olam haba, shneimar v'yemusu ha'anoshim motzi edi bas ha'aretz rabba magefa lifnei Hashem, they're done. V'yemusu b'olam hazeh, but magefa l'olam haba, they're done. They get no olam haba. Dor hamidbar. Also a very strict line. Not only do they have to not go to Olam Haba, but they also don't get this extra adjudication. Shinamar, the pasuk says, by midbar zeh yitamu v'sham yamusu, double language, yitamu and sham yamusu. Divri Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Lazar Omer, Alehem hu Omer esfu li chasidei korse brisi ale zavach. It's very difficult to know what that means, but that they should be gathered. That you should gather the chasidei korse brisi alai zavach. Is there a Rashi on that? No. The Gemara says, Adas korach en asida la'alos. They're not going to come out of the ground. They'll always stay down there. Shenemar vatchas aleim ha'aretz b'olam hazeh v'yovdu mitoch ha'kal olam haba divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lazar Omer, hu Omer Hashem memisu machaya morid sheol v'ya'al. They will come up. A machlokes if korach va'adasa will come out of the ground. The Gemara opens 10, 12 lines down on Kuf Ches Amud Aleph. We're going to learn another 15 lines or so. Tana Rabbanan. We should make it by the 9:30 Mar. Dor Mabil Elam Chelak Lolam Abba. Shnamar v'imachas kol ha'yikum ashal pnei adama. V'imach kol ha'yikum b'olam hazeh. V'yimachu min ha'aretz l'olam haba di Rabbi Akiva. So that's approach number one, is that they have no chelik in olam haba. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir Omer lo chayin v'lo nidonin. They have no tchias hamesim, and they don't get judged either in that extra adjudication case before the next world. Shnamar lo yidon ruchi ba'adam lolam lo din v'lo ruch, just like we saw. That their souls should not go back into their container, into their bodies. That means that there's no tchias hamesim for them. Even when a Kadosh Baruch Hu returns souls into Begar Mesim, into dead bodies, into corpses, nishmasim kasha lehem begehenim, they're going to have a very, very hard time with their neshamos. They're not going to survive that process. Shne'emar taru chashash tildu kash ruchacham eish tochelchem. What is this talking about? The neshama is in a body for them like a fire is to chaff and straw, which means that your neshama no longer fits into a goof. You're done. Tana Rabbanan, the Gemara says the third way down. Dor HaMabul lo nizgo ela b'shvil tova sheishbi alem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What happened with the Dor HaMabul? They got haughty because of everything. This is like our generation. They got haughty because of everything they have. Why do I need HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I have my health. I have water. I have everything. Says the Gemara, Maksi Bahem. What were their perspectives? Where did they go wrong that they assumed that they had everything they needed? It says the Gemara, Batem Shalom Mipachad, they had more peace, Velo Shevet Elok Aleim, there was no one ruling over them, Uksiv Shoro Iber Velo Yagil, the animals conceived with no problems, Tefale Parasa Velo Teshakel, the animals gave birth without having stillborns, Uksiv Yishalchu Kasona Vileim Yaldem Yarkidun, their kids were dancing, Uksiv Yisu Betofechinor, Yismechu Lekolugav, everyone was dancing with instruments, everything is fine and good, Uksiv Yibalu or Yichlu Yemein Betov, Ushnosam B'ne'imim, everything was wonderful, Uksiv Rega Sha'ol Yechetu. And in a moment they would die. When they died, it was instant, they didn't have a painful death. And these good things that were happening to them, vihi garma, sha'amru lokel, that they should say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, sor mimenu v'das rachecha lo chavasta. We don't want your ways. Masha, what is this word here? Is that Hashem's name? Yeah. Ma shakai kina avdenu. What is this Lord that we should serve him? Uma noel kinif kabo, that we should meet with him. Forget it, I'm done. Amru, they said, klum trichem anu lo, ela letipa shel gshamim. All we need is a little bit of water. We're good. We're good. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us so much that we forgot about him. That's what happened in the Ramabel. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, are you serious? The drop of water, all the things that you have are the good things that I gave you. You're telling me that you don't need me. I feel like I'm talking to my children. I gave those things to you. What are you talking about? I can't believe all my friends. Everything you have is from me, says the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Uba anidanosam. And if you know what, you're going to complain about the tipa shel mayim and the water you have. I'll show you what water looks like. Shenemar vani hineni mevi esamabul mayim. Yosi Omer dor hamabel lo niskol b'shvil gal ha'ayin shadom el ha'ayin. He says it's actually because of the eye. Gal ha'ayin, the sphere of the eye that's in our eyes. They were looking at things, and because of their eyes, they took women that they shouldn't have taken. Water is similar to the eye. I don't know exactly what that comparison is. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe the blue of the eyes. I'm not 100% sure. Waters are mostly made of liquid. I mean, the eye is mostly made of liquid. It has aqueous. What's it called, Dad? The liquid in the eye. The vitreous. Where are you? The Rashi? Ma'ayanos shenovim mimakom katan kemo ayin. The source of water to us appears very small, just like the eye. I have no idea what that means. Also, wouldn't you have thought the opposite? Okay, I don't know. Basically, we don't understand. Shneamar nifku kol ma'ayanos tehom rabba va'arubos hashamayim niftach. Rav Yochanan dor hamabel b'Rabba kilkelu b'Rabba nidonu. They made a mistake with Rabba, and they were judged with Rabba. B'Rabba kilkelu shenemar v'ayar Hashem ki Rabba ra'as Adam, that they were very bad. U'Rabba nidonu kol ma'ayanos tehom Rabba. Rav Yochanan, and with this line we'll conclude. Shlosha nishtayru mehem. Three things stood out from that time. Belua de get. Let's actually stop here so I can actually teach this properly next time. Let's stop at Amar of Yochanan, about halfway down on Kuches Merav. We'll pick up on Shabbos, Mir Hashem. Wishing you all a beautiful night.